Hi, everybody. In this lesson, we are doing the guided practice for processing transactions. Now, what we're going to be doing here, strictly speaking, isn't an accounting activity. It's just something we're going to do for a couple of days to learn how to analyze transactions in order to figure out how to actually process them. So, in this video, what we're going to do is I'm going to walk you through the process of doing the first three transactions. And then I'm going to leave you to finish the last two for your kind of seat work. Okay. Now, so before we get started, though, one thing that we want to make sure that we do is make sure that after we process all the each transaction that we're balanced. So going back to our accounting equation, we should make sure that our all of our assets, the total of our assets equals the total of our liabilities plus our owner's equity. And so what we can do in order to figure that out is we can put in like a little check thing as we go. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take these cells here and add them up, and then we're going to subtract off all these, and then the answer should always be 0. So this might be a little bit complicated, but we're going to open up our thing. We're going to go put in our sum function, open up the box, and then we are going to go over to, actually we should do this at the top one just to make sure that we're balanced before we start. So we're going to equal sum. We're going to open our bracket. I'm going to go over to my cash or bank account. I'm going to close in my brackets. Now, there's a lot of different ways we can do this, but we'll just keep it simple. So then minus, and in this case, I'm going to do the sum of these three boxes over here. I'm going to close my bracket, press enter. So if I do this right, I should always get a balance of 0. So what this is saying is that all the red boxes equal up to the blue boxes. If I do this incorrectly, then I'm going to get a plus number, which means I've got too much asset, or I'm going to get a negative number, which means I've got too much liability or owner's equity. Now, recalling that what we are doing in Excel or Sheets depends a little bit on what the cursor is doing. Since I've already gone to the trouble of making this formula, I don't want to recreate it. I don't want to, or do it by hand anyway. I can drag and drop it and paste it. So I'm going to go down here to the little handle in the bottom right-hand corner, and I'm going to notice that my cursor changes to that little dark plus sign. When it does, I'm going to left-click and hold it and drag it down to make sure that I get the right answer, or I get my little formula in all of them. Now, if I go down, I press F2. As I go each one, you'll notice that I'm getting all of my colored boxes in all the right places. Okay, so next thing I want to do before we get started into this too much, so I want to talk a little bit about the analysis process. So these transaction descriptions that you're going to get are kind of the replacement of source documents. We're going to learn how to read and kind of decipher source documents at some point in time in the near future. But for now, just to keep it simple, I'm going to give you the descriptions, and then we're going to have to figure out how to work with them. So in these, there's a little bit of kind of analysis and kind of reading between the lines, some intuitive thinking that we have to put to work to make these happen. So here we have a transaction for $1,200. It was cash that was paid to C Financial to reduce the bank loan. So right away, I should know that I'm going to need my cash account, and there's going to be an entry for $1,200, and I'm reducing the bank loan. So if I was to think about this kind of logically, this would mean that I, or we as a business, we're paying $1,200. So I'm going to have less cash, and I am going to I'm paying it to the bank to reduce my bank loan. So I'm also going to have less bank loan when I'm done. Now, the C Financial might kind of throw things off a little bit, but let's go and have a look at our accounts. So going back up here to the top, so I should notice that we've got some asset accounts here listed at the top, and I'll just kind of put them in a little bit of a color. I've got some liability accounts listed, put them in red, and then owner's equity, which I'll put in green just for fun. Okay, so looking back then, thinking about that transaction, so we have C Financial. Well, if I look across here, it lists all the names and everything that are related to all of my different accounts. So for instance, Jay Hoffner is the owner of this business, whatever it is. Now, if I look here at my liabilities, I have an account payable for D. Glenn, but I also have a bank loan outstanding to a company called C Financial. So this is where I'm going to be putting that piece of the transaction. So what I'm going to do here then is I am going to put in either a plus or a minus, and then the amount that I think I need to put in. So in this case, I know I'm putting out or paying $1,200. So I'm going to put in a 1,200 in there. Sometimes when you do that in a finance spreadsheet, it'll put in brackets. It's kind of like secret accountant code. When you see a number in brackets, it's a negative. Then, so I know I've paid out my cash. The next thing I'm going to figure out is where did I pay it to? Well, as I said, we are paying it to loan company, C Financial. Now, this is really important. Again, going back to that good versus evil thing, we might think or perceive the fact that we're making a loan payment is a good thing and wanting to put a plus next to it. We also might see that because this is a minus, we might have the impression that we should put a plus against it here as well to balance out for it. Well, that would be incorrect. So, for instance, if I did put in minus 1,200, look what happens. Or sorry, plus 1,200 rather. I'm now out 2,400 because of the math that we did. Remember, we're taking these numbers and we're subtracting off those numbers. So if we don't do this right, we're going to end up with the wrong number. So in that case, then, we have to understand, what's important to understand is we are reducing the amount of the loan that we have outstanding. So that is going to be a minus 1,200. And you'll see there now that we've got a 0. So this is telling me that our transaction is balanced. Another way to think about it is that this side here, the asset side, has gone down by $1,200 because we have this minus 1,200. Well, if we added 1,200 to an account over here, as this side is going down, the right side then would be going up, and that's going to put us out of balance. In this case, because we have equal amount of decrease, the whole balance sheet has decreased equally, which is what we need in this case. So then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to carry forward our balances. So there's different ways we can do this. The easiest way is to put in our equals. And then because we have the plus negative sign in there for our transaction, we're just going to add that second number. Okay? So you'll know it's 13,500 minus the 1,200 equals 12,300. So it's reduced by 1,200. Then again, we're just going to drag this all the way over here to like that. And we have a error message. So actually, we should really only do it where there's a box anyway. Or no, we're doing new balances. So let's see if I can do it across here. There we go. And then, I wonder why it won't do it all the way. Let's try it over that way again. Oh, it's because the equity has got two boxes. So let's see if that's right. Yeah, there we go. Okay, yeah. So in this case, we're going to just go up here. We're going to hit our equal sign. And then the plus sign and go up to plus, there we go, and up to there. Okay, so here we can see then that these two accounts have changed in balance. All the rest have not, and you have to put in your extensions like that. And then again, once we want to do our little double check, we can see here that all the blue numbers that we've added equal up to all the red numbers we've added. All right, so that ends the first transaction. So now we're going to go on to the second transaction. So in this case, we have somebody named M. Tyler owes us the business $2,500. So this is an amount that we're expecting to receive in the future. And sure enough, if we go up here to the top to our accounts receivable, we see an individual account for somebody named N. Tyler, and sure enough, they owe us $2,500. So in this case, what we're going to do is since they're, oh, and it says they're paying us $1,100 in a partial payment of her debt. All right. So intuitively, we should know that if M. Tyler is paying us $1,100, we're going to have an increase in the bank of $1,100. Now, as I've said before, we can't stop there because we only have one piece of the transaction. And so, for instance, if I were to put in my $1,100 right here, you'll notice now that my line isn't balanced. It's out by $1,100. So what that means is that somewhere in here, I need a minus $1,100, or somewhere over here, I need a minus. Over here, I need a minus $1,100, or over here, I need a plus $1,100. So as we said, we do recognize that the cash account or bank account is involved because we have that. We have more cash. But as we just pointed out too, M. Tyler has an account with us worth $2,500. So this is where we're going to put the other part of that $1,100 payment. Now the question is that an increase or a decrease? Well, before the transaction, they owed us $2,500. They've now paid us $1,100 out of that, which would mean that they owe us now less than they did before the transaction. So that's a reduction in what they owe us. Now, the other way to look at this is a process of elimination, which isn't the best way. It's important to understand. But if you're sure of two things, then this has to be a minus 1,100. And those two things are, if you are absolutely sure that this is an increase to cash, then, and you're absolutely sure that the other part of the transaction has to go here in these boxes, so specifically this one, then it has to be a minus. If by extension, if you were sure that it was going to go over here, it has to be mathematically, it would have to be an increase. And so as we see, once again, we have a zero, right? Because we have our two 1100s, the minus and the positive, canceling each other out. So the next thing we're going to do then is we're going to go to our 12,300. We're going to hit our shift key and we're going to go over here to all our boxes. We're going to hit Control C or copy and then go down to there and put in paste. Okay. And so now this shows our new balances. We have our 12,300 in cash has gone up by 1,100 to 13,400. Our receivable account has gone down to 1,400. 2,500 minus 1,100 is 1,400. All the rest are the same, and lo and behold, we are still balanced. So we are good to go. Okay, so that's that transaction. Third transaction, we are purchasing $1,950 worth of supplies for worth cash. So let's kind of locate our accounts first that we're going to use. So we have our cash account, and because we're paying money out, and then we have our supplies account because that's what we're buying. So if you want in Excel, and I don't recommend usually that, especially for assignments, that you color code stuff. Usually accounting documents are very kind of plain and ordinary. But if it helps you to kind of process it, what you can do is before you worry about the math, is just highlight the boxes you think you're going to be using. So if you're going to be using that one, which we are, and that one, which we are, you can click on the little paint can button up there and fill in the color. So as we said, we are purchasing $1,950. And sometimes people look at these and they say, well, but sir, there's only one amount. How do I figure out, what the two parts of the transaction are? How can there be two parts when there's only one amount? Well, it's because of the accounts, and that same amount is going to apply to both. So we're getting both an increase in supplies and a decrease in cash, both for the same amount. So we're going to put in our minus 1950 here. And because we have a decrease in cash that we paid out and we have an increase in supplies, we're going to show that. And lo and behold, our transaction balances. So when we copy and paste our math down here, it should balance as well, which it does. Excuse me. right? So, and this is a really important lesson in accounting. You really want to make sure that when you're processing transactions, that first of all, you make sure that your individual transactions balance, that they're for the same amount. And then after, so that that way you're not making a mistake at that point, but also after each transaction, if you can, you want to make sure that your balance sheet is staying balanced as well. Theoretically, as long as every individual transaction is balanced, your balance sheet should always balance. Otherwise, what happens is if you don't check as you go, you're going to have activities where you're processing 15, 20, 30, 100 transactions, and then you get to the end and you're not balanced. Then you have to go back through every one of those to figure out where the mistake was. Okay, so the next step is yours, which is to complete transactions 4 and 5. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of a hint on the next two because they're a little bit different. The first one, which is transaction number 4, if you read it, you should be prepared to use 3 different accounts, okay? Not 2 in this case, and not more than 3, but you're going to need 3. So that transaction number 5. And then remember what we talked about in class in terms of performing a service. Which account reflects money that we brought in for performing our service? Which account reflects the value of the business, which would go up, hint, 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 when we sell a service for our business? So good luck with that. As soon as you're done those last 2 transactions, make sure that you are still balanced here. You're going to want to put in your total of your assets here, your total liabilities, your total equity, and then you're going to want to show me that those 3 cells are balanced or add out to 0 over here on the right somewhere. Once you've done that, please save it and then submit the spreadsheet to the Dropbox. Good luck.